So as Rebecca said, I am Sydney Jones. I lead the threat intelligence team at CLS Group, which is a financial market utility. If possible, can someone please shut the door back there on your way in? I would appreciate that. Thank you. So as Rebecca said, we're going to be talking about different things you can do in your career if you want to stay in CTI and build up through there, or if you're thinking of going to another team in the future. So here is what we will be discussing today. Just a couple of questions. How many of you knew back in high school or college that you wanted to be a cyber threat intelligence analyst? Right? I mean, it wasn't really a thing when we were growing up. So how did we determine this is the career path we wanted? We kind of figured it out on our own. I mean, unless you were super technical as a kid or you had parents in the government, you probably didn't know much about what was going on in this space. Myself, I was an international relations student. I really thought I was going to be a diplomat or work in counterterrorism. I did neither of those things, so here we are. So this talk is, to talk through different options as you're looking at your career going forward. Like, how many of you know what you want to do in the next 5 years in your career? Okay, then this talk is perfect. I'm glad you are all here. So here are some questions that over the years over my career, I've been asking myself. Like, I really love intelligence. I love the research. I love knowing like what the threat actors are up to. But if I want to grow professionally, will I have to give up that love of research? I was talking to other people that I've worked with over the years, and they have actually been able to move on from threat intelligence and moved into other career paths. And I've kind of wondered, well, how did you do that? And we talked through some of that in my preparations for this talk. We talked through like, how are they doing? How are they thriving? What do they enjoy? And also like, what did they learn from intelligence that is now useful in their current path? And another reason for this talk, just a little bit more intro, I went to Grace Hopper back before COVID, and I was really excited to be there, be with all these women in technology, and I'm gonna learn so much. And I went to a talk on career paths, but I really wasn't blown away by their advice. What I got from that was, you're gonna choose your own path, you're gonna blaze your own trail, which is what women in cyber have been doing since we started. So like, nothing was new there for me. So I just started thinking, I'm gonna have to figure this out on my own. And what I thought that particular talk was missing was some practical advice and some ideas for me to think about how I could look at other alternatives. So why do you want to listen to me? I mean, Rebecca said I've been a speaker before a few times. I lead a threat intelligence team at a financial market utility, which means our customers are the banks, not you and me as individuals, which is kind of nice. I don't have to worry about credit card fraud. I'm also a professor in my first semester at Columbia this semester, which is really exciting. I enjoy mentoring students and kind of talking them through career ideas, helping them figure out where they want to work. And then I thought I could talk to you guys about this as well. And I'm also very big on partnerships. Last year, I talked about information sharing. So if you all know, I love to network and talk to everyone. So enough about all of that. Let's dive in. So what are some threat intelligence skills that you think of when you think of like what led you into threat intelligence? What do you think would be applicable to other career fields? I've listed a few here that I'll dive into, but there's probably others that you all can think about being intelligence analysts yourselves. So the first one, continued curiosity. This actually came up in happy hour last night. We were talking about how some people like had left the biological and research field and come into threat intelligence because they were so curious about what was out there. So thinking through like, do you love to dive into a different threat actor group? Do you like to learn about new TTPs? Do you like to look at like what is coming inside your network and helping out other teams kind of figure out like, how did they get in? What are they doing while they're in here? If you like automation, there's always something new to learn in automating a task or helping your team automate a task. So those are some things about curiosity that kind of forget about, I think, because we're doing it every day. And also communication. We talk to so many different teams when we're in Intel. We can talk to the incident response team, we can talk to the business. So that communication is so important as analysts, but also when we're talking to businesses or thinking of exploring other alternatives. That is still a skill set you can use. And knowledge of the MITRE attack framework. So knowing the TTPs that threat actors are using, knowing how the T codes relate to each other, knowing how they progress along the kill chain, knowing where the best places are to start putting in additional detections and mitigations in your company. Those can be used when you're also exploring alternatives. Critical thinking. We all like to gather as much data as possible before making our assessment. We're able to kind of check our biases because we're aware that we have them. I mean, you discussed some biases in your last talk. So just being aware of them is so important for an intelligence analyst. And it's good to kind of bring that into another team when you're thinking of moving on. Knowledge of the business, I talk about this a lot in this 30 minutes because knowledge of the business is actually so useful. And I think it's another skill that we forget that we know and we have when we're thinking of going to another team or interacting with other teams. And then lastly, understanding threat actor intent, capability, and opportunity. So knowing what the threat actors are looking for, knowing who they target, knowing if your company will be the target of a particular activity is important, but it also helps you when you're talking to another team about like, well, we should care about this activity, we should not care about another because let's say they only care about banks and we're in healthcare, or they use this particular vulnerability, but we don't have that appliance in our network. So those are some things that you can kind of think through that you already are aware of. So how many of you know you want to stay in CTI forever? Thanks, Sherman. So if you do, then this slide is for you. If you're not sure, like let's talk through some things. So if you don't want to be a manager, that is perfectly fine. I mean, there's so many not highly educated, but highly skilled intelligence analysts that just stay an analyst their entire career, but they start focusing in on a particular subsector or subsection of intelligence, such as like fraud intelligence or a ransomware group. So if you're thinking of that, you could start to offer to give presentations on those topics, such as many of the presentations at this conference will be about. So you can think of doing that. You can join a working group either in your sector or across sectors or in your community and start diving into a different project with each other. You can look at a specialized firm. So if you really like cryptocurrency and blockchain, you could look at Chainalysis. If you're interested in a particular region or threat actor group or type of threat actor, you could look at like Mandiant or CrowdStrike or something similar to that. You don't need to just stay at your company if you just know all you want to do is intelligence analysis all day, every day. But you could also think of, if you don't want to go into leadership, you could still mentor junior and up-and-coming analysts. Mentorship is another thing that I will talk through a lot in this presentation. So when you're mentoring others, you're getting to kind of explain and talk through how you got to where you are, and also kind of share your ideas and kind of brainstorm with these more junior or entry-level or mid-level analysts on what they're thinking about, which will help you think through additional things you'd never thought of. I love asking my team to go off and do a report without much guidance because they will come back to me with something I'd never thought of before. So I don't want them to have my biases in the beginning to know like what they're gonna go research. I want them to figure it out on their own first, and then I'll help guide them if I think it's way off. Leading a team. So if you're thinking, I might want to lead a team, maybe with an intelligence team, you could look at leading a smaller team first, or a subset, like a tactical team or a strategic team. And you can kind of start thinking through what projects do we want to do this year on, what topics, what reports are we going to write on, what are going to be most of interest to the firm. You're going to be providing some strategic direction to the team. You're going to give them some guidance. It's not going to just be like, I'm sitting up here in my high lofty tower now that I'm a manager. You're going to be working with your team one-on-one and in a group. And then if you're not sure if you want to do this, you could start offering to lead a project. Like if you have a larger project you're wanting to do this year or a report, you could be like, hey, can I take lead on that? Could I be the senior analyst on this? Could I help kind of bring everybody's analysis together into one report and kind of lead that effort? It's another way to kind of see if that's something that interests you or not. You could also offer to be the manager for a summer intern. So a summer intern is not usually that long, maybe 8-10 weeks. You kind of get some experience leading an intern, kind of offering them some managerial advice. But at the same time, it's a short-term time commitment. So if you really didn't like it, you don't really have to worry about doing it the next year. Now, if you're already doing all of this and you're like, hey, I still want to stay in Intel, but I don't want to go outside, but I still want to lead, what are some other things you could be doing? So if you're strictly a cyber threat intelligence team, you could start asking to be like, can we add in some physical intelligence? Could we add in executive protection? Could we add in social media analysis? And what this means is you're going to have to start fighting and explaining to senior leadership why you need these additional tools, additional people, additional money, but also explaining how it's important and how it will continue to protect the firm even more. You can expand your stakeholder and customer base by doing this as well. So that means you're going to be talking to more people in the business. They're going to know more about you. I'm sure you're already doing CTI roadshows, but now you're going to be doing even more roadshows internally to kind of talk through like how these additional skills that you're going to be offering will help protect the firm. And then you can also look at how threat intelligence informs business decisions. Is your company looking to expand in another geographic region, such as Asia or Latin America? You could sort of give them some analysis on what the potential threats would be so that they are aware of that when they're looking to expand. Are they looking to develop a new tool or new product? Are they advising on a merger and acquisition? Or are they looking to acquire or merge with another company? If you know this by talking to your business stakeholders, you can start offering them some advice and some guidance on what you see as potential threats so that they can be aware of that and start mitigating those risks in the beginning. Okay, enough about CTI. Some of you might want to go outside of intelligence, and that's perfectly fine, and that's great, and I love you for that because as the keynote said, getting the teams together is a good thing, and getting different experiences on those teams is very helpful. So the next 5 slides, I will cover 5 different areas you could explore. It'll be kind of set up to talk about the skills you already have as an Intel professional that will help you get into these roles, some things you could be doing while you're in these roles, and then some things you can explore to get a little bit more understanding of what these roles entail while you're deciding if you want to explore that. So the first is incident response. I consider it the probably most important customer of the intelligence team. We work with them day in and day out. This is also your SOC team or your detection team. So some things that you already have as an intelligence analyst is the relationship you already have with them. You're helping them with their incident response analysis. You're doing that research for them, especially operationally and tactically. And that research skills will still come in handy when you're helping respond to an incident. You're able to kind of dig into a certain indicator and pivot out to find more information. You are also able to explain complex issues to users. You know, as intelligence analysts, we're able to talk tactically and strategically at the same time. We're able to talk about how things are very technical, but to layman's people, so the business people, in a way that they can understand. And this also comes in handy because as you're doing investigations, you're going to be talking to other people outside of security about like, why did this happen? This is what happened because you clicked on that link or when you decided to open an attachment. Having those conversations at a higher level than what we have in cybersecurity is always useful. Some things that you're also going to be doing if you decide to go into this role is you're going to be able to go into detection engineering more. So if you really like kind of finding how we can detect additional threats, how we can take the information that we provide to the incident response team to change our mitigations and our detections, this is where you'll be able to actually start working on changing those detections and mitigations. So if you're thinking, hey, this might be a cool opportunity for me, but what can I do now? You can start doing more operational intelligence. You can start seeing how your operational intelligence reports are used by the incident response team. See if there's anything that you need to change in your intelligence analysis that better helps them. Another thing that I always say to someone who's like, how can I make sure that my intelligence is being useful, whether you're wanting to go into incident response or stay in Intel, ask to shadow your detection and response teams. They would love for you to know how they do their job because they know it will make the intelligence better for them. But also if you're thinking, that could be a cool thing for me to go do next, this is an easy way to go in and learn more about it. And also if you determine you don't like it, you're still in your real job that you have right now. And another thing is there's also a lot of training on cyber defense or purple teaming. There's courses at SANS, there's courses outside. Whether you stay in intelligence or not, these are still going to be useful for your day-to-day job right now, but also if you want to move into incident response. So risk management. This is another team that I find that my intelligence reports in the past are used by the risk management team an awful lot. Now that I lead a team, I don't have my own reports, but my team's reports are also going to risk management. And the intelligence life cycle definitely feeds into their framework. If you're thinking about how we tell them what the threats are and the potential impact, they're looking at the potential impact and comparing it to the controls we already have in place. Knowing that MITRE attack framework, like I said before, comes in very handy here as well. Knowing what TTPs and tactics are being used and comparing it to our infrastructure or your infrastructure, knowing where you have some gaps and where you can start remediating those gaps is very helpful. And then also that specialist knowledge, knowing that this threat actor tends to follow these same steps when they're going after a target, or knowing who they target also comes in handy. You're able to kind of determine, do we need to put in mitigations right now? Are we able to accept this risk because we know that they tend to target this type of technology we don't have, or we have this technology behind firewalls and other layers of defense, so it's not as pressing of a concern right now. A lot of long-term mitigation plans are based on our intelligence assessments. So being able to kind of talk through the risk team about why a threat intelligence team kind of stops at one part and then it moves into the risk team for the risk team to do their own assessments and kind of determining where they need to have those mitigation plans in place is also extremely helpful. And then, actually need to go to my notes because I lost track, sorry. No. So tracking the risk assessments through to implementation. This is another thing I get asked a lot in intelligence right now. So you identified this threat, you told a team, who's tracking that it's being implemented? Is that the intelligence team's responsibility? Not usually, because we're so focused on what's going on outside the wall that we're not focused on how teams are actually implementing it in place. So that's where the risk management team typically comes in, because they're taking our assessments, they're checking to see what's going on as far as how the network is being secured and seeing where those gaps are and working with the business and other security teams to make sure we're mitigating and remediating those risks. So if you're interested in this next level of how intelligence assessments are used in risk, you could start again with job shadowing. That's really going to be helpful for any job you're considering. But you can also start researching, like I said, the firm's new business interests, like I said earlier. Offering to do a combined threat intelligence and risk assessment together so that you can start looking at what those external threats are, but then also working with the risk management team so that they can better prepare for this potential risk because of a new business opportunity. You could also read some books on cyber risk intelligence. I don't have any specific ones in mind. I saw a lot on Amazon that you could kind of look at. If you want advice on that, I can ask some of my coworkers as well. And as a highlight, some people that moved into risk management said, you know, it was really great using my intelligence skills, but you don't need to tell everyone the backstory of a threat actor. You don't need to tell them why someone did something. They just want to know, how is this going to impact my business? So starting to learn how to speak in the business terminology and not our threat intelligence terminology is another skill to start working on. So policy. Policy is another area that is near and dear to my heart. I kind of dabble back and forth between intelligence and policy. Some skills that are useful if you're considering this would be you love information sharing, you love government relationships, you love talking to people all the time. That is a good thing to have if you're considering policy. So you're going to be writing a lot, you're going to be doing presentations, you're going to be defending your beliefs of why a policy should be written a certain way pretty much all day, every day. So be prepared. If that's something you enjoy, then start looking into this. But you're also going to be enjoying to do research like we all do, and understanding biases is also helpful. So policy can be done either within the government, or if you're in a large enough sector, a trade association or a sector coordinating council. So if you're in finance or healthcare or defense or technology or all the bigger sectors, there is likely a trade association doing a lot of this work for you. And then some very large firms also have a government relations team or advocacy team that they are kind of reacting to different draft policies that are happening, not just in the US, but globally. So some things that you would be doing, you would be assisting with broader information security by helping the people who are writing policies better understand how they are actually implemented day to day. A lot of policies are very high and lofty and great ideas, but sometimes they're impractical, especially when it's a first draft. You know, a lot of people are still a little not too happy with the SEC's 24-hour notice of a potential cyber incident because we don't really know much in 24 hours. So being able to have those discussions when other entities are drafting regulations and policies around these types of rules is something that you would be doing. So you can use your knowledge of threats and then also knowing how defenders work while you're crafting these policies or providing input to the policies. You would be drafting new policies, especially if you worked for the government. But if you worked for a private sector entity or a trade association, you would likely be providing comments or helping them adjust different things that they've written. So if you're interested in learning more, you could read the congressional draft legislation. I forgot which website it's on the top of my head. But then there's also the Federal Register will have a lot of policies that different agencies have written that are requesting public comment. If your firm has a government relations team, find out who they are. Offer to take them to coffee, get to know them a little bit better, start talking to them more. If your firm does not have anything like that, see if there's any trade associations that you could belong to. And if you're not a member of any, then start asking and talking to your leadership about, I think we should look into this more. Could I take this on and start looking into it and do the legwork to start seeing if this is something we want to do as a firm? And those are some tidbits I would offer. If you don't have a government relations team or have these trade associations, then start asking around in your network to see if anybody else knows anyone. Okay, I promise I have 2 more slides on these bigger topics, and then we do a nice little wrap up, so we're getting there. So resilience, again, you spoke about resilience earlier. Does everyone else know what business-specific resilience means? For those who don't know, thanks for the head nods and hand raises. For those of you who don't know, it's the ability for the business to respond to an unexpected crisis, basically. So this could be a physical attack, this could be a pandemic, which we've all gone through, this could be a cyber attack, many different things. So being able to respond to that is what business resilience means. They're looking into how the firm can react. So again, you're want to know what the business does and how they are doing their work. So what tools are they using? How long can a system be down? Is there anything that we rely on that if it goes down, it would pretty much be a very, 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 very bad day, meaning not sure if the company can recover from it. So it's helping to prevent that type of activity. So already for larger intelligence teams, especially if there's a resilience team or exercises are required, you're hopefully already helping with developing the scenarios that they're using for these exercises. Threat intelligence is able to tell the teams like what is already pressing and important to the company to make sure they're able to withstand an attack from a certain situation based on real world scenarios. And also the stakeholder relationships that we already have, a lot of those stakeholders are usually involved in these exercises and lessons learned processes. So those relationships are already going to be useful if you're looking into doing more of this. So some things that you would be doing on a resilience team is business impact analysis. So similar to what I was just saying about how, talking through what's going on, understanding how the firm would react in a certain situation. You would also be doing a lessons learned process. So you would take information from the different exercises and tabletops the company's gone through, but also any real world incidents that have happened. And usually during those processes or those situations, you're taking notes of like, we could have done this better. Well, we could have done that better. So you usually have a meeting afterwards to talk amongst yourselves about what are those lessons that we learned and how could we start improving upon that. There is cyber specific resilience, but there's also operational resilience. So you could do either one. And if you're looking more into this, you could offer to be the CTI rep for the exercises or lessons learned meetings. You could offer to help to develop the scenarios that they will be using in these exercises, or you could offer to play a part in the exercises as the CTI person that's playing along, not knowing what the scenario was from development. And in the lessons learned meeting, you could offer to be that rep to be like, hey, I'm the intelligence team rep here. These are the lessons that we've learned, and kind of talk through those with the broader business, and then start talking together on how all of you can improve upon those lessons together. And to learn about continuity planning, there's the Business Resilience Institute that has some courses. CISO has some recommendations as well, and there's some other online training. And upper management. Just a caveat, not everyone needs to plan to try to get up here. It can be very stressful if you don't enjoy stress. Not everyone needs to go up here, and that's okay. There are a lot of other things that people prioritize and focus on. So if this isn't for you, that's perfectly fine. Like, you know what you want. So if you're in upper management, you're typically enjoying to be able to understand those threats that impact, again, the overall business. So you know how a threat actor's reaction or what they're doing against your business could impact you. You enjoy strategic decision making, so you enjoy being able to make not just one decision, but understand how that one decision could impact your next decision, and the third decision, and the fourth decision, and be able to kind of picture all of that when you're making that first decision. And then also you're able to convey to the broader business how the threats that you know about to inform your defensive posture, making the case for why we need new security tools in place, or why we need a new process in place, because, well, the way it was done before kind of let us get into a lot of trouble we may or may not want, likely don't want. And then if you're in upper management, things that you would be doing is analyzing a large amount of information very quickly. So one thing that I would say is, like, you could be within the span of 90 minutes, a meeting on a financial decision, a meeting on kind of defending why you need more tooling. You could be in a compliance meeting, and then you could be kind of giving some guidance to one of your lower level managers, all in 90 minutes. So that's a lot of different topics to kind of think about very quickly and rapidly. Like I said, you're going to provide guidance to other leaders and teams. You're going to kind of try to promote and expand other people's exposure to the rest of the business. You find that to be a very important task. And then you're also going to continue to inform business decisions, if you're a CISO or in that realm, with the security posture that you know about. You're going to be like, I know this is going to cost more money, but this is why it's important. This is how it's going to protect the firm overall. I know it might impact your day-to-day operations because you have to do one more click to get an email outside the firewall, but it's also going to make sure that we're not sending out information we didn't mean to. So if you're interested in this, if you don't know anything about budgeting, learn about budgeting. That's always important. You need to know the budget process for your company and how decisions are made. You could also look at joining a local nonprofit board or any other community board in your neighborhood, in your city. This is because you're going to learn about how decisions are made outside of security. So you can learn about how decisions are made outside of your company, outside of security, so that you have a better picture of when you go into an upper management role, how others are doing this, and you have a better idea of how you can bring in new ideas to that. And then also you can study management and leadership. SANS does have a strategic planning and leadership course that I highly recommend. The Harvard Business Review has a lot of free online information that I look at a lot, especially when I'm trying to figure out how can I help guide my team a little bit better on a specific topic. And then also LinkedIn actually has quite a few articles. Okay, so that was a lot of just 5. And these are a lot of other roles that I know are out there that you could kind of pivot into. The suggestions of what I made about how you could start learning more about them apply to all of these areas. Most likely, your company has something similar to one of these roles internally that you could start offering to job shadow or have conversations with. Probably not going to be a journalist or law enforcement unless you work for an agency will be in your area, but that's where your network comes in. Conferences come into play. You can start talking to other people, meeting new people, asking them questions. If no one in your specific network does this, but you're interested, ask around. Ask them if they have any friends that do this or anybody in their network that would be interested in talking to you. So to close, there are many paths you could take as an intelligence analyst. We had many paths to come into this world. There's many paths to move on if you want to stay in Intel, if you want to go into another team, et cetera. So just a couple of tidbits to kind of wrap it all up. So just remember that your Current experience is going to aid you in your job growth no matter what. You know a lot of information. You already know a lot about the business you work in. You have a lot of stakeholder relationships. You're able to research so much more information that's going to help you in learning if you want to move on or stay in this field that you're already in. And just continue to keep meeting new people. You learn new things from new people, whether you stay in Intel or not. And it's going to help you kind of understand the world at large and help you kind of, regardless, be a better intelligence analyst or whatever role you choose to take next. Keep going to conferences, find local meetups in your area, local conferences, have those lunch and learns in your company, et cetera. Find a mentor. I really like mentoring others myself, but it's also great to have a mentor to kind of help push you and expand your knowledge and also your comfort level, kind of push you to be like, well, I was thinking of doing this. I was thinking of giving a presentation, but I don't know. A mentor is going to help you kind of talk through like, why do you not want to do that? I think you're going to do great at it. Let's prep through it. Let's work on it together. Or take a course. There's a lot of online learning. There's a lot of books you can read. There's a lot of journal articles. It doesn't have to be a certification course. Anything you're doing to learn is helpful. And then I wanted to give one story about job shadowing specifically. So a colleague of mine was interested a few years ago in exploring vulnerability management, which was not one of the topics that I talked about, but it's on the last slide. She was like, I really want to learn more about vulnerability management. I was like, okay, offer to shadow them and see and learn more about it. And she did, and she learned a ton, but she also learned she didn't want to go into vulnerability management next. But you know what? She came back to the intelligence team knowing so much more about their process and how they determine what vulnerabilities to patch and how they push the teams to patch those vulnerabilities that it made her a better analyst when we're researching new vulnerabilities. So just don't be afraid to take on new projects, especially if you're just doing stuff in your current role and just exploring other roles. It kind of gives you a little bit of top cover to be like, I kind of want to test that out, but I still want to stay here. And then not only should you seek a mentor, but you can also mentor others. And the reason why I suggest this is you start learning more about how you talk to other people and how you give them advice and how you change that advice when you're talking to other people. And with that, just know that whatever you choose to do, it's going to be great. And if you have any questions, I feel happy to take them. I will also be out in the room during the next talk to not interrupt anybody. So.